So as you know, I'm here in Ukraine ministering the gospel to the Ukrainians who are suffering. It's really bad right now. So I need your help to support me while I'm here. I'm a missionary. I'm out here in the field. I've been out here in the field for 4 years now. And I'm also translating the Bible into English with a very rigorous methodology that's never been used before, and it's yielding gold. So I'm doing that at the same time. In addition, I'm making these videos for you who are back in the stateside and in Europe, and even for Ukrainians as well. But as I say in my other videos, if you're Ukrainian, please don't donate to the ministry, because I'm ministering directly to you. I expect Christians who are abroad out of Ukraine to support me while I'm here. What I expect is, if you are a Christian and you're not Ukrainian in Ukraine, if you're out of Ukraine, you're American or you're German or you're French or whatever, I expect you to step up. And I expect you to support the ministry here as I minister the gospel, as I translate the scriptures, and donate whatever you can. I say start at $25. So you save up, if you don't have $25, save up your change for a month and then donate $25. Give something. And it's not the amount that matters. It matters that you are contributing to the gospel, that you, out of the mercy you've received from God, that you know you've received in the forgiveness of your sins through the gospel, the reconciliation of you with God, are you going to withhold that from others? Then don't withhold it. And contribute to the ministry here. You're not out here on the front line. I am. Step up and support a true minister of the gospel, a commissioned leader who's been a pastor in the church and who has gone through seminary and has worked in ministry for quite some time. I wanted to say this in advance so that you understand that what I'm going to show you here is a resource, and I have exported it from the spreadsheet into a PDF. Now, if you would like that PDF, if you donate to the ministry, you will automatically receive it. I'm going to start sending these resources to the mailing list of those who have donated. If you haven't donated and you want this resource, you can still have it, no problem. I'm not selling anything. Just let me know. You can find my email address. They've moved things around now on YouTube because there's no About tab. You have to go to the channel page and you see the channel banner, I guess, and it says more or see more or read more or about or something like that. You click on it. It's like the description part under the title, The Rooted Word, and it has a little description that you click on it. It shows you a pop-up, and in that is the email address, ron.craig@therootedword.com. Okay, so you can send me an email. All right, now on with the lesson. So I'm going to put it up here on the screen so you can see. This is about the time period from the creation of Adam to the flood. And I want to talk about the different eons that occur during this period. There are 3 distinct periods before the flood. And you can see that on here. I want to just, go over the columns here. The first one here is how many years on earth that person was, like before they died. But not all of them died. So like Enoch didn't die. So I instead labeled it years on earth. So then you've got the column Genesis 5, which is the genealogy with the years, etc. Then the father's age at the time of the birth of his first son. And then you have Adam's age as kind of a time marker. Then you've got the actual date, because after Adam dies, you have to still calculate how many years, right? Then you've got some notes, and you've also got some footnotes based on an asterisk or 2 asterisks or a caret. Then you got the eon in years. All right, so those are the columns. That's what we're looking at. I've got certain things highlighted that are special. So let's have a look at this. The first one says years on earth undefined. Well, that's talking about God. Okay? You say, well, wasn't it only 6 days? Well, that's what I first put also, but then I realized, well, we don't know how much time passed before the first day. Okay? After God brought things into existence, we don't know how long it was before the first day, because the first day had not been created yet, when there was already something that had been created. So, and then it says, God creates Adam. So we don't know how long God had been present in the creation before he created Adam. All right? And so the Father's age, in this case would be the Creator's age, is undefined. We don't know how old God is at this time. And then Adam's age is 0 because he was just created, and the date would be 0. All right, so that explains that. That's the beginning of the first eon. Now, we go to the first entry where Adam has a son, and it's not his first son. I said first son, but in this case, Seth is not his first son. Okay? But it says, for when Adam was 130 years old, he begat Seth. All right, so that gives us a time marker there. But we know that Adam, from the text, it says that Adam lived 930 years. So under years on earth, it says 930 years for Adam. All right, and the father's age at the time of the birth of Seth is 130 years. Adam was 130 years old when he sired Seth. And so Adam's age was 130 years. And the date was 130. Now, we go to the next one. Seth, being 105 years, begat Enos. So, Seth lived 912 years, so the first column says that. And the father's age, the father of Enos, who's Seth, when Enos was born, was 105 years. So Seth was 105 years old. Adam's age was 235. And the date is 235. Then we get to Enos being 90 years, begat Canaan. Enos lived to 905, according to the text. And you say, what text? This would be Genesis 5. That's why this column is labeled Genesis 5. You can just read right along in Genesis 5. So Canaan, being 70 years, begat Mahalalel. So the father's age of Mahalalel was 70 years. So when Mahalalel was born. Even though he lived 910 years, Canaan did, he was 70 years when Mahalalel was born. Adam was 395 years old when Mahalalel was born. Okay? And you can do the math. Seth was his son, Enos was his grandson, Canaan his great-grandson, so that's his great-great-grandson. Adam was 395 years old when his great-great-grandson was born. And the year was 395. Then we go to Mahalalel, being 65 years, begat Jared. And Mahalalel lived 895 years. He was 65 when he sired Jared. Adam was 460 years old when Jared was born. The year was 460. Jared, at the age of 162, begat Enoch. And Jared lived 962 years. That's the longest of anyone up to this point. Longer than Adam. A lot of people say, well, from Adam, because of the fall, the age of man, the length of the years that man lived diminished each generation. It didn't. In fact, it increases many times. You can see it's diminishing from 930 to 912 to 905, but then it goes up to 910, and then down to 895, then way up to 962. And it doesn't go down to 365 because Enoch didn't die. But from 962, it goes up even more to 969, the longest that any man has ever lived on earth. Then it jumps down to 777 for Lamech, but then it jumps way back up for Noah, 950. So it's up and down, up and down. So don't buy into that where because of the fall, the length of the years of man diminished. No, that's not what happened. All right, so we're on Jared, and he begat Enoch. And Jared was 162 years old when Enoch was born. Adam was 622, and he was still alive because he lived 932 years. 930 years. All right, so the year was 622 when Enoch was born. Then Enoch, being 65 years, begat Methusalah. Methusalah is a very, very important person. You say, well, Enoch was, but Methusalah was more important. And I'll explain why. 65 years old, Enoch was when Methusalah was born. Adam was 687. He saw the birth of Methusalah. He saw the birth of Enoch. He saw the birth of Methusalah. The year was 687. And Enoch lived 365 years on the earth. That's why I said years on earth. All right, so then Methuselah, he lived 969 years on the earth. At the age of 187, he begat Lamech. So he was 187 years old. Adam's age was 874 years old. He was still alive to see Lamech born. And the date was 874. Then Lamech, being 182 years, begat Noah, and he lived 777 years. He died at the youngest age of anyone up to that date. I mean, Enoch was taken off the earth, so he didn't die. All right, so then it says 182 years the father was when Noah was born. So Lamech, the father. Adam's age, okay? Adam did not live to see Noah born. And you can see this asterisk and go down here. And it says, Adam died when Lamech was 56, 726 years before the flood. All right. So if Lamech was 56, he wasn't 182 yet. So Noah hadn't been born yet. But anyway, when Noah was born, the year was 1056. All right. Then it says Noah was 600 years old when it began to flood. Of all the people here, Noah started his family the latest of all. Extremely late, like 3 times later than anyone else. Noah was 600 years old when it began to flood. He lived 950 years. Okay? All right, and that was the year 1656. So from the time of the creation of Adam to the day that it started flooding, it was 1656 years. That's all. Now, you can see these other asterisks like this about Noah being 600 years old when it began to flood. You can find that in Genesis 6:11. All right? And up here, the little caret with 0 under it says creation of Adam as year 0. But over here in these notes, this is interesting. Enos, being 90 years, begat Canaan. Men began to call on God's name. Okay? So that's the first eon was from Adam to that point, where men began to call on God's name. Genesis 4:26. So you can see here the first highlighted part says in the year 235 from when Adam was created, men began to call on God's name. You can see it in Genesis 4:26. It started when Enos was born. So that first eon is 235 years. Now, the second eon is a little longer, 452 years before there arose the man Enoch, who walked with God from the time that Methusalah was born. It's very important. The timing of all this is perfect. So Methusalah is an antediluvian word. There is a Hebrew word, and it comes from Hebrew roots, but it predates Hebrew by a long way. And what it breaks down into is the first part means an extent of time, like extending time. So Methusalah was extending the time of man on earth. God had already decided to destroy man off the face of the earth. And Methusalah being born was the starting point. His life, how long he lived, marked how much time mankind had left on earth. And that last part of his name means a missile that's being shot out from, sent out from, to attack. So there's an extension of time after which this missile, Methusalah, will cause the attack to happen, the flood to start. As soon as Methusalah dies, the rains start. Lamech was already dead 5 years, his father. But when Methusalah died, it started raining. That year, it started. Because Methuselah's life was the marker for that. That's why that's so important. And Enoch started walking with God when Methusalah was born. Enoch began walking with God when the countdown started to this destruction of mankind off the face of the earth and the salvation of the righteous man, Noah. Now, very important. So the end of that second epic, for the year 452, was when Methuselah was born and the countdown started. Now we see that the end of this other eon is 369 years, not 969 years. So what's going on there? What gives? Well, this was when Noah was born. So that eon came to a close when Noah was born. Now the reason that I'm measuring it this way is because it's approximately 1,000 years to the birth of Noah. It's a millennium. A millennium is extremely important measurement in time. That's why at the end of the Bible, it talks about the millennium, the millennial reign of Christ. A millennium is a very important period of time. So while time was counting down, and there was still 600 years left when Noah was born, there were still 600 years left for humanity on the earth. But Noah, the savior of humanity and of animals, of life on earth, the one that God used to save humanity from being completely destroyed off the face of the earth and to save animals as well, he was born. So you got two kind of things overlapping. One is the life of Methuselah. That's the missile that God sent out from the time he was born. So that when his life ended, boom, the flood came. Not 5 years later, not 10 years later, that year. So Methuselah was the countdown, the time bomb. But still, the eons are something that's measured differently in that case. What else can we say? Well, it says that Noah, I put this at his birth, says, a righteous man, perfect in his generation. You can read it in Genesis 6:9 and 7:1. God says it twice. There's no doubt that Noah was a righteous man and perfect in his generation. Now, some want to criticize him, saying, oh, but he got drunk. Right? So they want to criticize him for that. But God contradicts you, because God calls him a righteous man and perfect in his generation. And you want to say, oh, he's a drunkard. So you want to say that God is a liar. Because if you call Noah a drunkard, you're calling him wicked. Because you're saying he certainly wasn't perfect because he was a drunkard. That's the context of that. He certainly wasn't perfect because he got so drunk he was naked. No, he was in his own tent, naked. He's not the one who sinned. Look at that text again. It was his son who sinned, not him. It doesn't give any indication whatsoever that Noah sinned, but his son certainly did. So you got to revise your view of that and stop that. So I think we've said what can be said about this right now. I hope this has helped you to see this in a slightly different way. That millennium is divided up into 3 parts. They're not exactly equal because the first part is shorter than the other 2, and the second part is longer than the other 2. Men started calling on God's name earlier than during Enos's lifetime. It says at the birth of Enos that men started to call on God's name. Just like at the birth of Methusalah, Enoch began to walk with God. So the birth of these 2 men started a spiritual revival. The birth of a child, especially a firstborn, which is the case in both of these, is that it can start a spiritual revival in the heart of the father. And the father can inspire those around him in spiritual revival. So, don't underestimate the birth of a child, especially the birth of a firstborn son, in reviving your relationship with God and reconciling you with God and igniting that passion to walk with God and to call on God's name. I want to wish you a blessed Christmas. It's Christmas Eve. And we have church every day this week, by the way. Our church met this morning and this evening on Sunday. And we meet tomorrow morning and evening, Tuesday morning and Tuesday evening, Wednesday evening, Thursday evening, and Friday evening. Then we're back in church again on Sunday. This is a holy week. And our church celebrates it that way. So I hope that you also remember the Lord Jesus all week. And every day you do something special to remember Jesus and Mary and Joseph and the shepherds and the angels and the wise men and everything that happened at that time. May the Lord bless you as you seek Him with all your heart.